Hello and welcome to today's C-level discussion about how to protect service accounts and other identity security blind spots. My name is Manuela Ollhäuser. I'm marketing manager at IC Consult. And before we dive into today's discussion, just some topics from my side regarding the technical details. All participants will be muted during the session to ensure clarity and minimize disruption. So there's no need for you to mute or unmute your microphone. And today's discussion will be recorded. So you will receive an email with, within the next few days containing the link to the recording, allowing you to revisit the session whenever you like. And should you have any questions during the discussion, please feel free to type them into the chat. And we will allocate time at the end of the session to address your questions. Our speakers today are Hed Kovetz, the CEO and co-founder of Silverfort, and Andre Priebe, the CTO of IC Consult, to whom I will now hand over. Andre.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so a few words about IC Consult. IC Consult is a system integrator completely focused on identity-related cybersecurity. We're in the market now for more than 25 years and are supporting our clients around the world with more than 850 employees. In my role as the CTO of IC Consult, I make sure that we are always able to provide the leading edge technologies and most modern delivery methods to our customers when it comes to implementing complex identity and access management projects and solving the demands related to protecting the digital identities of customers, of employees, third-party identities, the supply chain, and so on. And I'm super excited being here today together with Hed from Silverfort.
Thank you, Andre. I'm very glad to be here too. So I am the CEO and one of the founders of Silverfort. I'll tell you just a little bit about Silverfort in case you don't know us. Silverfort is a company that enables identity security everywhere on all the different systems that are difficult to protect with existing tools. We actually integrate with the existing security solutions that people already use for identities, like Entra and Okta and Duo, YubiKey, and many others. And we extend them to all the systems that they don't support. So we can uniquely protect things like legacy systems, service accounts, IT and OT infrastructure, command line tools like PowerShell, all the things that you normally can't protect with modern identity security. We can bring all those existing modern security controls to those silos. So that's what we do, and we work with hundreds of large enterprises around the world and companies in all sizes and industries. To solve these exact gaps. And we are partners of IC Consult, and I'm very happy to be here today with Andre and talk about some of the things that we do together and what we hear from companies about these challenges. So Andre, what do you think? Should we maybe start with talking a bit about those challenges that companies are facing?
Yeah, but the question is, what are the most important challenges the companies are facing right now? And that's something what we would like to hear from the audience. So we will have a short poll and ask you to, let us know what's from your point of view the biggest identity security blind spot your organization has currently.
Yeah, so we offer a few options here that we at least hear about from many companies. Feel free to choose the one that you think is the biggest gap in your current environment. What is the place where you are really struggling to enable identity security controls? between non-human identities, legacy systems, OT environments, third-party users or supply chain, or shadow IT. By the way, all of them big problems. But we'd love to hear what you see.
And you might mention more than one challenge, because there in the real life more than one challenge, unfortunately. Okay, but I think we will have a winner in that beauty contest of blind spots. Okay, then let's close the poll and let's have a look to the result. And number one goes to non-human identities. What a surprise, but directly followed with shadow IT.
Yeah.
And legacy systems and third-party users are directly next to it. So a close race.
Yeah. And then OT environments, I assume not every company has one, right? So probably a very big problem, but only for some companies.
Exactly. Hed, what do you think? Looking to the non-human identities, what are the challenges you're hearing from your clients when it comes to non-human identities and service accounts and these kind of users?
I think that the results we are hearing from this audience really represent what we hear from many companies, because we also hear that this is probably the biggest challenge. Non-human identities is an area that has been neglected for many years because people have implemented, single sign-on, MFA, all these solutions for the human users. But when it comes to the non-human identities, like service accounts, for example, the problem is very deep because people don't even know where are their non-human identities. Who are those accounts? What are they even doing? We see so many cases where people don't even know that some of the regular users, like the regular human admin accounts, are actually being used to run applications and schedule tasks, or the opposite, that they have service accounts that people are using for their own purposes from time to time, and then trying to actually protect that with the traditional tools like trying to rotate passwords on these accounts usually just breaks applications, right? So a lot of people are struggling with how can they even find and then secure these accounts without breaking the operation.
Exactly. So my recommendation, if you want to get known into your IT organization, then start a project to clean up the service accounts. Because so first of all, to talk to really everybody in the organization. And then it's very likely that because of your initiative, there will be outages of important IT systems. It's really that kind of task I don't like to have, but unfortunately, it's of course often related, because exactly as I said, it's what we often really realize. So service accounts, technical users, there's so many use cases for them, and the processes to manage to maintain them are often very weak. So and I understand that, because there are often processes reaching out to the assigned supervisor of that machine identity account once a year, asking, hey, if it's still in use, and what might happen. He is not in the department anymore. But before causing any trouble, say, yes, it is, yeah. Or maybe it has been handed over to another person, and then maybe he remembers, but often don't remember. Oh, might be there was something during handover, I don't know. Yes, accept. Until the handover didn't happen, the person is not there anymore, and then it's cleaned up and we have an outage. Yeah, so that's kind of situation we see too often, and then the accounts are out there and they have a significant attack surface, because the next thing is, when they have been created, was it at a time when least privilege, zero trust, these kind of patterns were known to the IT professionals? Often, unfortunately, not. So too much privilege is related to that. Nobody knows exactly. Privilege collected over time, never cleaned up. So lot of things happening to these service accounts. The attack surface is unfortunately really huge.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, we're talking to hundreds, maybe even thousands of companies about this, and we haven't met a company that actually had complete understanding of their service accounts and where they're being used. It's a jungle. So I can really see why people are struggling with it. And we'll probably talk about it later, but it's not just a challenge to do, it's also a pretty urgent problem because attackers are using the fact that these accounts are not protected. But yes, definitely a big blind spot.
It's a big blind spot, and it's growing because based on the modern protocols like OAuth, OpenID Connect, there we have that kind of notion of client IDs, which is nothing else than a machine identity at the end of the day. So there are a couple of areas in which we are really increasing the problem without having a good solution in place in a lot of cases. So it's a really important one. And then the next point mentioned by the audience is a shadow IT. So that's a little bit the topic of you don't know what you don't know. In that case, you know it's there, but really with, well, absolutely critical IT assets out there without having a governance in place for that, and the thing which is good and bad at the same time, it's much easier nowadays connecting that into the single sign-on without applying a global governance to that. So also a very exciting topic.
Yeah, and I think it's becoming worse because organizations have such a complex hybrid environment. Sometimes they have an on-prem environment, they have multiple clouds. They sometimes have all these silos of identity and access management, right? One company could have Active Directory, a few different tenants of Entra, and they have Okta, and they acquire another company that has Ping, and now they have all these silos. And that's before you even start to look at those completely unknown shadow IT things that people are doing on their own, which is why getting control over all your identities and what they're doing across the board is such a big challenge. But unfortunately, this is what attackers know as well. So they are taking advantage of the fact that you don't know about all these identities. So something that we really need as an industry to solve and to consolidate the security for.
Absolutely. There's another interesting point you brought up. That's the thing of the identity provider components out there, because I don't know any company which has that one single identity provider, but typically multiple of them, sometimes connected, sometimes not connected to each other. But even if they are connected to each other, what does it mean at the end of the day in having a kind of single pane of glass to understand what's happening around one single identity, human being or machine identity? That's very challenging, and the kind of exposed token is then misused in a whole ecosystem without not knowing about that. So that's a kind of very critical area in which for attacker it is perfectly to have that huge attack surface out there.
Yeah, good. It's also very related to, I think the next one was legacy systems, because that's the problem, right? Organizations have cloud identity and they have legacy systems still using LDAP or NTLM. And being able to secure all of that with unified controls is just very difficult, especially where some systems you can't even modify. These are systems that you have from 20 years ago, or third-party applications that you can't even change. They're built with password authentication, or they're built with this Active Directory authentication, and you can't change that. It's not in your control. Which creates so much challenges of getting consistent identity security across the board.
Absolutely, and that's always that kind of very disappointing moment when it comes to multi-factor authentication. So first of all, you have the challenges to introduce multi-factor authentication into an enterprise with a global setup, enrolling it to all user groups and so on, and then realizing what percentage of our IT assets are now protected with MFA. Unfortunately not that super critical database where the business users having a kind of fat client on their desktop, accessing via ODBC databases, or having application layer in between without any modern protocols, and then still some file shares used, and so on. So there are so many areas in which, unfortunately, we cannot then apply multi-factor authentication. Then we have the service accounts as accessing these resources as well, and there we don't have the capabilities to ask a bot to use a multi-factor authentication vault on a YubiKey, right? It's not working that way.
Yeah.
So there are still many use cases and a couple of accounts which are accessing the critical resources without having the MFA enforcement in place, and that's also a very huge blind spot, unfortunately.
Yeah. And just before we depress the audience too much, I'll say that we will talk later about some solutions to these problems, but it's important to understand the problem, because I think every company has almost those same problems. Something that everybody see.
Exactly, and that's also the case when it comes to supply chain third-party users. So identities you don't have completely under your control, or where you have more constraints or less capabilities around enforcing things, providing tools, something to increase the level of security for these specific users. And supply chain is always related with some kind of uncertainty. Of course, a lot of standards, regulations, are in place, but at the end of the day, it's still not the same as having your own employees, your own hardware in place, which you can control, where you can check compliance status and so on and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And like once someone is in your network, it's very hard to know what they're doing and control that they don't do more than they need to. And then the last one was OT environments, right? Where I think it's similar to what we talked about with legacy systems, but maybe even worse, because you can't even make changes to these systems. You are not allowed to install anything on them. It will break. It will break the operation, but also sometimes you're not allowed because it will break the warranty on some of the equipment, right? You may have some equipment in your factory or hospital or things like that, and if you install anything on those systems, then you're going to break the contract, the warranty that you have on that equipment. So how do you bring secure authentication or something like FIDO or any kind of modern protection to something that you can't even make changes to? It's a big challenge.
Yeah, it is a big challenge, and if someone within the IT is complaining about legacy and old and outdated systems, he likely never looked into the OT, because it's much worse there. Having a complete different perspective, and often not really prepared for the connected world. But now it's getting connected, and the challenges around that are increasing dramatically. Yeah, so that's a challenging area, and unfortunately, you can really read in the newspaper every single week about a company which is right now not able to produce anymore because their OT is currently not working. So because of an attack, ransomware, DDoS, whatever. And we're talking about OT here, but the same applies, of course, to the IoT in the consumer area. Remembering things like the Myra DDoS network built on top of vulnerable webcams and these kind of crazy things ongoing. So it really shows that we have a legacy, technical debt when it comes to OT, to IoT, embedded devices, and so on.
So I think that we can summarize that there's a disconnect between all the great technologies that we all follow, right? That go into the identity security market with, phishing resistant MFA and ITDR and all these great new things. But there are so many systems and environments and scenarios where these technologies are just not available and cannot be implemented, right? So I think the question is, how do we bridge that gap and bring those technologies to these blind spots? But before that, let's just talk a little bit about what are the results of these blind spots. You know, how are attackers actually taking advantage of them? So, what are you hearing from IC Consult customers about those threats?
Yeah, so of course it's now kind of referring a little bit to what we were talking about before, right? So service accounts, yeah, that's something attackers are absolutely happy to get hands on. Why? Yeah, because there is no MFA has to bypass and to confirm. Yeah? That's something what is not happening. And then also that kind of least privilege paradigm is often, unfortunately, not applied. Yeah? So sometimes you don't have any explanation when something happened, why it was not applied. But in the end of the day, there were too much privileges. And then it's really kind of nightmare to clean that mess up, right? So that's something what is really the kind of first thing that attacker want to get hands on the service accounts and then moving on from there. Not mentioning that, of course. Please go ahead.
No, we see the same. You know, we talk to a lot of companies that have that had data breaches before they talk to us, or we also see a lot of data breach attempts in some of our existing customers. We just had one recently on a large US company, Fortune 500 company, by Scattered Spider, the same group that attacked MGM, right? And that group does, you know, a lot of different things that kind of rely on stolen identities. That's the tactic. They start from some kind of social engineering where they get some employees to give them access, right, or to click on the MFA or to somehow allow them to access their identity. And then they start to move laterally in the network. They compromise a service account, they compromise a domain admin account, and they take over the environment. And we saw, in many of these attacks that these groups tried on our customers, we saw those patterns, and luckily we were able to stop them. But we saw that it's almost always the same pattern. It starts from getting one person's either endpoint or identity, right, through social engineering or phishing, and then it's always about stealing credentials and moving laterally until you find better credentials and spreading from there, where the targets are always getting to a service account or another privileged account that allows you to take over a big portion of the network and then either steal data or encrypt it. By the way, we've seen the same in some nation-state attacks. So we had cases where we were able to stop data breaches by both Russia and China on some of our customers, especially in Europe recently, where it's exactly the same technique. You know, and the question is, why are those very sophisticated attackers using those basic techniques? And I think the answer is because it's easy. Why not? You can just create an identity and log in through the front door, and nobody stops you because it's a service account and nobody can really protect them. Why not? Even for the most sophisticated attackers, why not just do that? It's too easy, and it's been like that for many years, right? So the question is, how do we change that paradigm where, you know, it stops being so easy for attackers to use stolen identities?
Maybe trade a little bit on that, as you mentioned, the situation around Okta last year. The other aspect is very often also supply chain is somehow part of that attack, right?
Yes.
Help desk outsourced to another company, for instance, yeah, or the supply chain part of solving IT issues, yeah, having access to logs, HTTP traces, these kind of things with tokens in it. And that's very often part of that a starting point to move forward. So lateral movement, a movement between organizations, not between IT systems within one organization. So that kind of attacks getting I wouldn't say complexer, but they are really leveraging the potential to spread into different areas. And that's I'm excited to see. And unfortunately, I would say one of the takeaways is that we somehow have to really build up that kind of resilience, understanding, hey, we will not prevent that in all cases, yeah, but we have to be resilient and be able to detect it and react on that. And I think that's an important point we will cover.
Yeah, definitely. You can't protect what you can't see, right? But I think that organizations are trying to both understand where they are vulnerable, but also to detect and block those kind of threats. Maybe before we keep talking, let's ask the audience kind of where people are in terms of just their readiness. So yeah, so everyone, we'll do another quick poll, and this is about how well you're prepared against these kind of attacks. Okay, we're talking about identity threats, like if somebody had a compromised identity in your network, how easily could they move laterally, compromise more identities, and get into some of these service accounts or other accounts that will allow them to cause damage using identity as the attack surface. So how do you feel? Are you feeling fully prepared or not prepared or something in between? It's always interesting to see how people feel in terms of their readiness.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Really excited to see that kind of very small self-assessment. Let's wait a few seconds and I think we have all answers collected. Okay, then let's close the poll and let's have a look to the results.
Interesting.
Okay, interesting. 10% fully prepared. Majority is moderately prepared, and well, 40%
somewhere in the middle. Most people are somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
which makes sense because I think a lot of companies have some controls, right? A lot of people have, at least on some of those systems, maybe there's multi-factor authentication, maybe there's, some PAM solution that some of the accounts are in. I think that's where most organizations are, at least from what I'm hearing, is somewhere in that endless journey to secure all their identities, right?
Yeah, and of course, it's also the starting point for many organizations completely different. Do you have a lot of legacy IT with you, or is the kind of small, lean IT setup, few cloud services, and that's it? So I think that's kind of having a very strong effect on how what kind of shape is the organization today when it comes to cybersecurity posture in general, right? And I think that's important topic, especially when it comes to external stakeholders as well, like cyber insurance companies, regulations. We talked about supply chain, and many organizations are also part of the supply chain, and then might be industry sector specific regulations apply to you even if you're not in that sector but delivering into that sector. So this kind of external stakeholders which really drives demand when it comes to identity related topic, like enforcing MFA, applying these privilege, following zero trust architecture patterns, and these kind of things. So what do you see as the most important drivers in that segment in your customer base?
First of all, I agree that there's definitely a growing pressure from regulators and cyber insurance companies to protect identities, which I think is just a direct result of so many data breaches that have to do with, compromising Active Directory or compromising different identities. I tell you from our conversation with the cyber insurance companies, which we partner very closely with, that a lot of them just have lost so much money because of ransomware attacks that were using compromised identities, that they just realized that if they don't require multi-factor authentication on everything, right? On every access inside the network, outside of the network, you know, humans, machines, admins. They realize that if they don't require that, they are going to continue losing money and they will not be able to sell insurance. That's, you know, their business is to calculate those things and figure out what controls they need to require for this to even be worth it to them. And we hear from them that they realize identity is probably the #1 priority. So if someone has identity security and they have, you know, MFA, at least on their privileged users and remote access and things like that, that's like the minimum that they need in order to at least be willing to insure you. And it's becoming more strict every year. So a lot of people, when they go to the renewal of the insurance policy, that's where it used to be just, you know, you need MFA somewhere, even if it's just in the cloud or just on the VPN. And now people going to renew it this year, suddenly they get a list of 20 things that they need to put MFA on if they want to get insured. So there's a lot of growing friction there. But again, I think that it's kind of like, I think about it just like insurance require you to put certain controls in your car, right? You need to have airbags and a seat belt, and even if you don't know why these things are good, hopefully you do. But even if you don't, the insurance company will not insure you if you don't have this because they realize that these things are critical. I think it's becoming the same in cybersecurity.
And it's good, and it's I agree, and it's good that it's going into that direction because it's not about the direct financial impact to the organization, and that's one thing. But as I said before, very often you are part of a supply chain for another company, yeah? And so you can be then the weak part in the security posture of that company, and it comes to PII of your customers, maybe these kind of things, which is suddenly affecting a lot of people out there with identity theft and or depending on the services you are offering. We are very fast in a situation that it's also safety relevant because can be used to, if you're talking about automotive sector, to locate a car, to unlock it. So again, affecting your clients, affecting your partners in the B2B segment. So it's good that that level of enforcement is increasing. Otherwise we would really live in a nightmare nowadays. Yeah. Having in mind that that attacks are getting more and more sophisticated, especially when it comes to things like social engineering, focusing on the human beings working with IT systems.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk a bit about how companies are trying to address this.
Exactly. And so I think the one segment is really providing the capabilities to do MFA, having understanding about processes, least privilege applied, and these kind of things. Yeah, but then it comes to the blind spots, so the area which is not straightforward protected because you're giving everybody YubiKey or something like that, right? And then we are really in that area in which I really like our close collaboration, because what we see is that together with Silverfort we are then able to enforce things which might not be enforced otherwise, like MFA when it comes to legacy IT systems, but also when it comes to getting a very good understanding what is happening with the service accounts out there, yeah? And are they behaving in a way as we have seen it in the past and expecting it to be, or are they behaving in a completely different way? What wasn't the purpose of that account, right? And I think that's one area in which I really see that that we can mitigate that kind of attack surface, which is there by nature because of its legacy. We don't have the modern protocols and so on. And that's something where I see where companies really improve a lot when it comes to their security posture.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll also say when we started this company, we looked around at all these solutions, and there are already a lot of great solutions for identity security that are doing a great job at protecting modern applications, especially cloud applications. And we didn't want to do that again. We understand that people already have that, and those solutions work really well. We wanted to focus on the things that are difficult, that people cannot integrate secure authentication into, and collaborate with the existing tools. So I think that what people really need in the security market in general is products that work together and not just all overlapping with each other. So we wanted to fill a gap, and that gap was, all these things that are very difficult to protect that other solutions can't, like service accounts, like legacy applications, command line tools, and infrastructure, and all these other things. And I see our customers, use all of that, but I think that there's a journey that companies went to, and you mentioned it earlier, where it really starts from visibility. The first thing that we do for companies is just discovering all these blind spots, showing them all those legacy systems, all those service accounts, everyone who's accessing anything within the network, just so that they know where the issues are. And we may show them where are the things that they want to solve, like systems that are still using NTLM v1, or clear text LDAP, or shared devices, or shared accounts, or people that have privileges they don't need, or things like that. I think that's really the first step, and there are some other solutions that do that. We do that as a baseline, because I think that's just the first thing you need to do before you even protect. But then the thing that is really special about what we do, I think, is protecting protecting the things that you can't put MFA on, or protecting those service accounts actively to actually enforce a policy on them. So that's where we extend your Entra MFA or Okta MFA or YubiKey or any other solution to those blind spots, and protect those service accounts and start to actually enforce, which I think is, you mentioned before, you start from visibility, but then you want to enforce and prevent. So that's what we do. And together with IC Consult, right, we can really help people get that full potential, because it's not enough to buy a product. You need to get the help in how to use it and where to use it. And I think that's a big part of the question. Even if you could put MFA on anything, there's a question of where should you? And even if you could protect all the service accounts, the question is, where do you start? There are all these questions where I feel like the expertise of companies like you, knowing what other enterprises are doing and helping with best practices, I see how valuable it is for our customers.
Sometimes it's a little bit about balancing, but what I really would like to highlight is the possibility to really enhance the Active Directory with the ability to connect and trigger and provide insights. So it's really solving that gap around Active Directory capabilities at the end of the day, and connecting it into the modern world, right? So that's something what is really was for us the reason, saying, hey, that's a problem so many of our clients have, and we have to provide a good solution there, and that was for us a kind of starting point with Silverfort, to really make sure that all the modern tool set is leveraged when it comes to the most critical resources, which are for good reason, there, and which we cannot ignore for the next 5 to 10 years. So that's really the important part there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then it's exactly developing the understanding and making sure that step by step we can reduce the attack surface by taking care of the technical depths which are there. Exactly. And migrating the overall IT landscape into that kind of zero trust world, zero trust paradigm. And that's a journey where we really like to help our clients with, because I think the overall value by reducing the risk for the enterprise is significant.
Yeah, and service accounts, which seems like the audience here also sees the big blind spot, is a big example, I think it's one of the best places to start, where we can just discover all those service accounts, showing you exactly where they're being used. They're going from these systems, accessing those systems with these protocols. Once we build that baseline, we can start enforcing, making sure that this account can only be used there. So this account can only connect from A to B. Even if someone steals the credentials, they cannot do anything else besides going from A to B, which is what this account is meant to do. Otherwise, you get an alert or we even block. And by doing that alone, you reduce the attack surface a lot, because these identities, the fact that you cannot protect them today is just makes it too easy for the attackers. And as we say, it's also a compliance issue in many cases. I think we don't have much more time left. I see there are a couple of questions about the potential impact of AI on some of these things, and about more of like the long-term effect of this, but do we have time to take any of these?
Yeah, maybe I think we cannot do a webinar nowadays without talking about AI, right? So what's a large impact you see now based on AI from both perspectives? Maybe from the potential it gives you as a Silverfort on the one side, and on the other side it gives to the bad guys.
So I think there's a massive impact of AI, of course, on every aspect of our lives and our work, but also on cybersecurity. I think that AI will only make it easier. If we already said that it's pretty easy for attackers to do these things, it's only getting easier. Things like social engineering, right, and phishing, it's becoming much easier. It's pretty easy now using AI to trick someone into giving you the credentials, because of the way it writes, the way it even impersonate voice or even video is becoming better and better. So I think that we all need to assume that it's going to become painfully easy to trick one of our employees into thinking that he's talking to IT, or he's talking to me, even to the CEO, and giving them the password, or even clicking on an MFA prompt. And I think that we need to start preparing for, it's going to be very, very easy to steal some of those identities and trick people into doing that. But then another impact is that once the attacker has that, the attack itself will become much faster, I think, because when it's fully automated, using AI, the steps of the attack that we used to think that they take days or weeks or sometimes even more, will take minutes. It will all be done pretty soon, and the AI will be potentially making the decisions for the attacker, making it even easier and faster. I think that one of the big implications of that is that we have to really put some emphasis on prevention and protection, and not just detection. Because the problem is that the detection is good if you believe that you have time after you saw the first or second step of the attacker, you have time to still stop the attack. Yeah. But if attacks will take a minute because it's fully automated and and autonomous, prevention is critical. We need to make sure that they just can't run lateral movement or other things, and it gets stopped in real time. And the defender side are also automated and also intelligent and AI driven, so that you can take response that does not need to be triggered by a human. We are already investing a lot in this, but I think it's something that everybody needs to start thinking about, because once it will hit, I think it will change the way that we all need to defend our organizations.
Yeah, so we have increased our capabilities to prevent an attack. Yeah, to detect it, and then also to stop it with a strong automated response in place. Because I think AI will affect all these, so from an attacker perspective, all these steps a lot, because as you point out, it will be much faster. The other thing is the attacker will be much easier to find the weaknesses, and not just by just a question of time. Nowadays there are automated, for many years, automated scans showing directly that an attacker is going to access your system. If you bring it into the network with a known vulnerability, it's take minutes, yeah, until that happens. And I'm quite sure that this will also happening on the social engineering side. Yeah, as you pointed out, yeah, CEO fraud, yeah, having kind of a deepfake for video and voice. And the question of time until this will be so scalable and fully automated without human interaction, and then they will scan your processes to reset devices, enroll a new MFA device, onboarding a third party, and these kind of things. And my guess is today we are not really good prepared for that. So there are a lot of improvements required in order to protect us against that kind of scenario, which is upcoming. It's just a question of time.
And we are doing a lot of work to be prepared, and also I think there are opportunities in AI for the defenders, which we are trying to leverage, but it's a race. It's really a race at this point. I think we are pretty much over time, right? So maybe let's just tell people you know, how to contact us if they want to see more about some of these things. So we have a great partnership, right? And people that want to try the unique value that we can deliver, they can really get professional help and expertise from IC Consult, right? But how should people contact if they want to see more?
Absolutely. So I would say we bring up our contact details so that the audience know how to reach out to you, Hed, or to me, and so that we can help you by assessing, help you into assessing the identity risks you have within your organization, and talk about ways how to solve that and improve your security posture.
Yeah, and I'll also say that we offer for IC Consult customers a free identity risk assessment that we simply run within the organization. Very simple to do. You know, it takes an hour or so, and giving you a report of where are all these blind spots that we just talked about today. We do that for free, just for you to see where your blind spots are. You know, those service accounts or legacy protocols or you know, things like that, and to see if you want to do something about them, which then we can together potentially help with. So if you want to see that, you know, reach out to IC Consult or to us. And as always, great to talk to you. And I don't know if anything that you want to say before we finish.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having that webinar together with me today. It was a pleasure, and also a pleasure working together with you and your colleagues. And yeah, thanks a lot to the audience for following our discussion. And yeah, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you very much. Great to talk to you about this topic.
Also from my side, thank you. And you will all get the recording afterwards. Have a good day, everybody, and thanks for attending.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.